Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Trumpet's Call. I'm Maria. I pray that you are holding on to faith and holding on to hope during these times. Welcome back to another session of our Torah Tidbit. In today's session of our Torah Tidbit, we will answer the question that was submitted to us by a fellow Hebrew who wanted to know, should women wear pants? And I thought it was an interesting question. And so I thought I'd do just a quick video on it so that I could address it, not only for her, but for all of us. So the best way for us to answer this question is to look to history and to look to the scriptures and to see what the Most High has to say about this topic. And also to look at this from historical context. What does this mean? So we're going to seek to answer the question, should Hebrew women wear pants? Reference to this is made in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 22. So let's read that. And it reads, "The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth to a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are abomination unto Yahuwah our Elohim." Now this is pretty serious. It's a pretty serious charge that if you do this thing, you're an abomination to the Most High. So we want to make sure that we're pleasing to the Most High, so I can understand why the person asked this question, because it clearly says here that a woman shall not wear anything that pertaineth to a man, and the implication there is that a woman shouldn't wear any clothing that a man would wear. That's the implication. And neither should a man wear any clothing that a woman would wear. And so to do so is an abomination. But what does that really mean? What does it mean to wear something that pertaineth to a man? First of all, you have to look at that in its historical context. What did we wear back then? Did women wear pants in the first century or before that? Did Adam and Eve wear pants? So we're going to read this article from wikipedia.com. It speaks about biblical clothing. And it reads, "The clothing of the people in biblical times was made from wool, linen, animal skins, and perhaps silk. Most events in the Old and New Testament take place in ancient Israel, or Yasharah, and thus most biblical clothing is ancient Hebrew clothing. They wore underwear and cloth skirts." I'm going to say that again. Our ancestors wore underwear and cloth skirts. No mention of pants. Underwear and cloth skirts. I'll continue on. "Complete descriptions of the styles of dress among the people of the Bible is impossible because the material at hand is insufficient. Assyrian and Egyptian artists portrayed what is believed to be the clothing of the time, but there are few depictions of Israelite garb. One of the few available sources on Israelite clothing is, of course, the Bible, the scriptures. And so on the screen, you'll see a few pictures of the Egyptians in their dress. And you can assume that the ancient Hebrews would have worn clothing that was similar to the ancient Egyptians, since they lived in close proximity to one another on the continent. And so as you look at the pictures, you'll see that they all have one thing in common. All of the people in these pictures, both men and women, wear things that look like skirts or tunics. In all of these pictures, there's nowhere that I can see a pant anywhere. So for a woman to wear a pant, it doesn't appear as if it's pertaineth to a man, because when this command was given, men didn't wear pants. So what is it referring to? We're going to look at a few more pictures. You can see on the screen an example of what I was speaking about. You see a man wearing a tunic and then a robe over his tunic, or perhaps a mantle over that. And then you see on the right side of the screen a woman dressed in what looks like a tunic with an undergarment underneath and a belt. Okay, these are indications of the style of dress that would be being worn during this time. More pictures. You see a long tunic, and then you see some sort of overcoat or a robe on top of that. And all of these pictures. On the right side of the screen, you see a tunic with a belt and then a robe or an overgarment over the robe. These are the style of clothing that would have been worn during that time, thereabouts. Okay? So there's no mention of pants. I don't see anyone wearing pants in these pictures. And so the scripture could not be saying women don't wear pants. I grew up in a holiness church, and one of the things that was banned to us was the wearing of pants. We couldn't wear pants because of this very scripture in Deuteronomy chapter 22. And so it was just a part of my life. I just didn't wear pants. Not until I was a teenager, really, did I wear pants. But this is a serious topic, and so I want to take into it very seriously for those of you who feel this is a conviction from the Most High. So if in your heart you feel the Most High is leading you to not wear pants, then follow that. Do what the Most High is leading you to do. And there are others who don't feel that conviction, and I'm going to say, do what the Most High is leading you to do. So the only and the closest mention we can see of something that remotely looks like a pant during the biblical times is something called girding up your loins, in which you take your tunic that hangs like a dress, and then you wrap it up and around your legs, and then you tie it off so that it looks as if you are wearing, actually it kind of looks like a diaper a little bit, but it's kind of like a jumper. So you kind of create something that looks pant-like so that you essentially get your tunic out of the way so that when you need to fight, your legs are free and you're not encumbered with your tunic. You're ready to fight, you're ready to go. So that's called girding up your loins, okay? The scripture makes reference to that in a spiritual sense, but I'm sure our ancestors did it in a physical sense. So that's the closest thing that we can see to the wearing of something that would look like a pant. And both men and women are encouraged to gird up their loins. So this couldn't be something that's considered sinful, as it's the only thing in the scriptures that we see that relates to something that may look pant-like. Okay, so what is the verse of scripture really talking about? Well, I found this article on BibleStudyTools.com, and I will read it because I believe it gives some sort of semblance of understanding as to what's being discussed here. So we read in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 5, "The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, it being very unseemly and impudent, and contrary to the modesty of her sex, or there shall not be upon her any instrument of a man, any utensil of his which he makes use of in his trade or business, as if she were employed in it, when her business was not to do the work of men, but to take care of the house and family. And so this law may be imposed to the customs of the Egyptians, as is thought, from whom the Israelites would lately come, whose women, as Herodotus relates, used to trade and merchandise abroad, while the men kept at home. The word also signifies armor, as Onkelos rendered it, and so here forbids women putting on military habit and going with men to war, as was usual with the Eastern women. And so Maimonides illustrates it by putting a mitre or a helmet on her head and clothing herself with a coat of mail, and in like manner Josephus explains it. Take heed, especially in war, that a woman do not make use of the habit of a man, or a man that of a woman. And so as we can see what's being described here in this commentary, that a woman taking on the appearance of a man or that apparel of a man is something that relates to picking up clothing or items that makes it seem as if she is engaged in the same trade as her husband and not being responsible for being in the home. It's also related to dressing for war, dressing in a men's apparel that he would wear when going to war. That's the implication here, that something about that is displeasing to the Most High. For the Most High is indicating to us, perhaps in this commandment, that a woman is to know her role and a man is to know his role. because the Most High gave us roles. I know society has given us roles. Society says a woman can do anything she wants to do, and a man has to sit back and let her. That's pretty much the way it's become. But that's not the way the Most High set it up. There is structure and there is order in the Most High's economy, in his kingdom. And the man still has authority over his household in the Most High's kingdom. And so a woman can't do whatever she wants to do. She is under the authority of her husband. Okay? And so for her to dress in such a way, physically and spiritually speaking, as if to usurp the authority of that husband is improper and out of order. So in part, that's what we could be seeing here. That a woman is to know her place within the structure and the authority structure that the Most High has set up. That could be part of it. Okay? Additionally, as we continue on, we're going to see a little bit more. Nor is he to be found fault with so much as he is by learned writer, since he does not restrain it wholly to war, though he thinks it may have a special regard to that. For no doubt the law respects the times of peace as well as war, in neither of which such a practice should obtain. But the Targum of Jonathan very wrongly limits it to the wearing of fringed garments and phylacteries, which belong to men. And so this article is saying here that the Jonathan Targums inaccurately refers to a woman not wearing clothing with fringes. And that can't be true either, because that's a command to the nation of Yasharal. It's not just to men. So for a woman to wear phylacteries or to wear fringed garments, it can't be an abomination to the Most High. It can't be. That cannot fit the criteria here. Continuing on. Neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, which would betray effeminacy and softness, unbecoming men, and would lead the way to many impurities by giving an opportunity of mixing with women, and so to commit fornication and adultery with them. To prevent which, and to preserve chastity, this law seems to be made. And since in nature a difference of sexes is made, it is proper and necessary that this should be known by difference of dress, or otherwise many evils might follow. And this precept is agreeably to the law and light of nature. It is observed by a heathen writer that there is a twofold distribution of the law, one written and the other one not written. What we use in civil rights is written. What is from nature in use is unwritten. As to walk naked in the market, or to put on a woman's garment, and change of the clothes of the sexes was used among the heathens by way of punishment, as of the soldiers that deserted, and of adulteresses. So abominable was it accounted, indeed, it may be lawful in some cases, were life in danger, to escape that, and provided chastity be preserved. So what we're seeing here is that in different cultures, they would have you, if you're a man, dress as a woman as a form of punishment, and vice versa. And that it wasn't the custom to wear such dress, because the distinguishing mark between a man and a woman can be found in many different things, but they wanted it, in this case of this article, to be seen in the way a woman dressed and the way a man dressed. But as you can see in the clothing that I showed you, there's very similar ways of dress. There may be similar items or maybe different items that make a distinction between the way a man dresses and the way a woman dresses. Perhaps a woman doesn't wear an overcoat or a mantle, perhaps. But the way of dress is very similar. And whatever the case, there's no pants involved. You don't see pants involved. And so the command can't be women don't wear pants. It can't be, because that wasn't on the table at that point. Okay? Let's continue. For all that do so are an abomination unto Yahuwah thy Elohim, which is a reason sufficient why such a practice should not be used. Some from this clause have been led to conclude that respect is had to some customs of this kind used in idolatrous worship, which are always abominable to Yahuwah. So Maimonides observes that in a book of the Zabians called Tom, it is commanded that a man should wear a woman's garment colored when he stood before the star of Venus, and likewise that a woman should put on a coat of mail and warlike armor when she stood before the altar of Mars, which takes to be one reason of this law. Though besides that, he gives another, because hereby concupiscence would be excited, and an occasion for whoredom given, that there was some such customs among the heathens may be confirmed by Macrobius and Servius, as has been observed by Grotius, the former of which relates that Philochorus affirmed that Venus is the moon, and that men sacrifice to her in women's garments, and women in men's, and for this reason, because she was thought to be both male and female, the latter says, there is an image of Venus in Cyprus with a woman's body and a garment, and with a scepter and distinction of a man, to whom the men sacrificed in women's garments, and women in men's garments. And as the above learned commentator observes, there were many colonies of the Phoenicians in Cyprus, from whom this custom might come, and to prevent it obtaining among the Israelites to any degree, who were now coming into their country, it is thought this law was made. For the priests of the Assyrian Venus made use of women's apparel, and in the feast of Bacchus men disguised themselves like women. What do we see happening in today's society all around us, brothers and sisters? We see men dressing themselves in women's apparel, and we see women dressing themselves and looking like men. It's a form of pagan revelry. It's a form of pagan worship. And it's very likely that this is what the scripture is referring to. It's an abomination to the Most High for a woman to dress herself like a man and engage in pagan worship. That makes sense. It makes sense that it would be an abomination to the Most High for a woman to engage in pagan worship while dressed as a man. It makes sense that the Most High would see it abominable for a man to dress in women's apparel and then offer up sacrifices to a pagan deity. It makes sense why the term abomination would be used. It makes sense. It also makes sense that the term abomination could be used to refer to a woman stepping outside of her role and wanting to dress like a man to usurp his authority. That makes sense as well. Okay? Or like a man dressing like a woman in order to engage in adulteries and whoredom. How that would be an abomination to the Most High. These all make sense to me. But wearing of a particular garment like pants, that in and of itself, that can't be an abomination to the Most High, because men didn't wear pants back then. So, I will summarize by saying this. If you feel the conviction in your heart from the Most High to not wear pants, then don't wear pants. If you have no such conviction, then follow your heart. Follow the conviction of the Ruach within your heart, I should say. If you're not sure, consult the Father and ask Him what He wants you to do. Okay? Ask Him what He wants you to do. But based on Scripture and based on historical context, we understand dressing like a man, if you're a woman, is such that either leads you into rebellion or leads you into idolatry. It's not the dressing in pants. But with that said, follow the dictates of the Ruach within you. Let the Ruach guide you. And if pants feels wrong to you, then don't wear them. If it feels that you have the Most High's blessing to wear them, then wear them as the Most High leads you. In all things, we must be led by the Ruach. The Ruach is our teacher. Okay? So that is my final advice. Follow the dictates of your conscience as instructed by the Ruach HaKodesh who lives within you. So, many thanks to the sister who asked the question, and I'm happy to have addressed it for all of us. So, bottom line, essentially, just about everything that the Most High gives us with regard to commands that are an abomination to Him ultimately leads us back to rebellion or idolatry. It just makes sense. And so it makes sense now why, when you're looking at this from a historical context, dressing up like a woman if you're a man, or dressing up like a man if you're a woman, is the precursor to engaging in idolatrous worship of a false deity. And we suppose when we look around and we see the level to which it's being done today, now we know why. Now we know how that very act of doing that is pointing toward the worship of a false deity. It makes sense for Babylonians to do such things. But we don't do that. We don't do that. So to dress like a man, what does that mean? Spiritually speaking, it means to dress in the apparel of a man, meaning to stand in the role of a man, to not fulfill your obligations and responsibilities that the Most High has given to you as a woman, and to try to stand in the role of the man. Spiritually speaking, that's what it means. So when you usurp the authority of the men in your life, whether it's your father or whether it's your husband, you're wearing the apparel of a man. You're standing in his stead and you're standing in his place. And that is sin. And so it's not so much about wearing pants or not wearing pants. There's a saying that says, who wears the pants in your family? Well, that speaks to authority, doesn't it? It speaks to who is standing in the role of leader of the family that the Most High intended. Is the man wearing the quote-unquote pants? Is he leading and having authority in his household? Or is his wife wearing the pants? Is she standing in the role that she shouldn't stand in as the leader of the home and usurping the authority of her husband? That is what we're seeing in these verses of Scripture. We're seeing that, and we're also seeing sin that leads to idolatry. It's not about the physical wearing of pants. Just as eating certain foods and with unwashed hands can't defile a man, putting pants on your body to cover it can't defile a woman unless she's doing it spiritually, usurping the authority of the husband or father in her life. If you do wear pants, they should not be tight, they should not be form-fitting, they should not be of the type that causes a man to look at you and lust after you. That's wrong. You should not cause your brother to stumble in any way if you do choose to wear pants. They should be modest and they should not show any quote-unquote shape. They shouldn't. You don't want to cause your brother to stumble in any way. And if you wear dresses, same thing. They shouldn't be tight, they shouldn't be form-fitting, and you should not do anything that would cause your brother to stumble. Okay? So all things in decency and in order, whether you wear pants or whether you don't. Let everything that you do be an offering to the Most High. How you dress your body, let it be an offering to the Most High. Be modest, be loving, be humble, be unassuming in your dress, so that when you go out and you leave your house, people look at you and they see that you are a living example of the Most High, who is in your body being worshipped through your actions. Let them see that. Okay? Let them see you dressing with modesty. Let them see you choosing to be natural and not putting on the excess of makeup and embroidered hair that's not your own. Your hair that the Most High gave you is perfectly suitable for you. Let's turn away from the pagan revelry of Babylon. Okay? Let's turn away from that stuff. So whether you wear pants or whether you don't wear pants, do everything that you do unto the Most High and get His approval. He loves for us to consult Him about such things. So consult Him about what He would have you to do, and then do what He says. May the Most High Baruch and keep you, brothers and sisters. May He make His face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May He lift up His countenance upon you and grant you shalom, peace, today and every day. Shalom and shalom, brothers and sisters.